Hey guys, welcome back to Dragons on the Wall, our Game of Thrones show. I am back. Roth is still on vacation, but me and Joshua are here to talk about just a small, forgettable episode called Hardhome.
Yeah, we were even wondering if we should even record this.
Yeah, it just seemed like no one cares anymore. Full spoilers and big spoilers for this episode follow. So you're still with us? You watched the episode, we take it. Best episode ever?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Certainly up there
Yeah.
with one of the best episodes of Game of Thrones ever. And that's saying something. It's a great show.
It is, and it was such a great episode, and I don't know unequivocally yet if I'd call it the very best. I'd have to think about it because there are several contenders, but top 5 for sure, I'd say.
Oh yeah.
Because even the last 20 minutes were so phenomenal. Amazing action sequence, but before that, it was a great episode. The Dany and Tyrion stuff was thrilling,
That was really cool. Although I thought it was a little too dry, but I did enjoy seeing them talk. But I thought if maybe there was something that she needed right then, like some sort of tension to the scene that she actually needed his help, not just like, here's who we are, let's get a big history lesson, and here's why we need each other. Okay, like I wanted it to be a little more like pacing to the scene.
See, I really like the second scene, especially when it's just the two of them, because I just felt like, I don't know, just kind of laying all the cards on the table, talking about their similarities and their backgrounds and why they would work together, and her obviously being understandably skeptical. And and obviously Tyrion's a great character for his dry wit, but the way he could just kind of throw out these little factoids about killing his dad, and the things that these like sardonic little asides. And I liked seeing her kind of, more and more you could tell being like, okay, maybe I should work with this guy.
Yeah, they have a lot in common all of a sudden.
Yeah. And so I think it was just very cool to see finally these two main characters after all this time really hash it all out.
Yes.
But then, that last, it was funny because Jon wasn't even in the show until that whole last sequence, and then he was the show. And because it was funny because they released photos and there was a lot of Jon Snow photos. I'm like, oh, he's barely in this episode. It'll be the last 5 minutes. But wow, I mean, that was just phenomenal where they went with that.
I think what the best part of this is that, and we're not going to talk about the books right now, but this wasn't in the books, so it's a complete surprise for everybody, and we just didn't expect for it to keep going, right? You thought maybe they'd get overrun by wildlings.
And then cut away.
And they'd be going, off into the water like, oh, we lost them. But it kept going. The battle got crazier. The horsemen appeared, of the White Walkers on the cliff.
Yeah.
The dread just kept going up and higher and higher. And then we got that great battle with Jon and the White Walker. And then, of course, the raising of the dead to make it even more like, come at me, Crow.
Come at me, Snow. It kept escalating. That's a great point. Because there were times where I'm like, this could cut away to another scene right now. This could be it for this episode with a storyline, like when the wall froze up behind it or something. But we didn't leave, and it just kept getting worse and worse. At the same time, there was a lot of badass moments. There was that one part where Jon did like a spin with his sword and cut a guy in two, one of the whites. That was great. Matt Fowler reviews the show for us, did make a point that apparently the whites on the show, the walkers, have gotten a lot quicker since the early seasons, but it just made it so intimidating.
Oh yeah, I'm very much a fan of the 28 Days Later zombies. Those are my favorite zombies. The fast-moving, quick ones that'll like, run at you and rip you to shreds.
Yeah,
those are great.
And then when they all came, the fact that when they kind of all jumped off the cliff,
and
then for a second, nothing happens, and they get up.
And what's even scarier about these zombies is that they're being controlled by the White Walkers. They're not just mindlessly going after something. So there's actually tactical minds controlling these crazy zombies. Although one thing I do want to say that I didn't like is that I was very confused in a lot of shots to what I was looking at, because I wasn't sure if I was looking at a white or a wildling, or what was happening, or the shot was too quick, and they kind of looked the same. I think there wasn't enough to visually distinguish between one and the other. That's a very minor quibble on a very awesome scene.
I understand what you're saying, especially when we were getting the perspective of the people on the boats looking back. At one point, it was like, wait, who's winning? Even though you kind of knew that they were who was losing. But I also think that kind of added to the chaos of the situation, which and it kind of would be. There was a part even where I can't now when someone almost stabbed someone, but I think it was Jon. Someone like turned and like realized was an ally,
Yeah.
because it is that kind of battle.
He like grabbed him. Yeah.
And I wanted to mention Carsey. That was her name, I believe. The wildling.
Yeah, they didn't name her in the show, did they? But she was great. I was like, oh my
great.
God, this is a cool new wildling leader.
Yeah, and then that was it for
From
her.
Pitch Perfect 2.
Yes, she was the bad guy in Pitch Perfect 2. I was very excited when I realized that. Yeah, that was really strong. Like, they just really established her character. And I mean, again, speaking to what a great episode this was, is that there, yes, it was a cool battle, but you were really invested in everyone. And I mean, and there was a bit of a polarization last year on the episode that was entirely the battle at the wall. Like, actually, Matt liked it a lot more than I did, for instance.
Yeah, they didn't really do it for me either.
Yeah, it was okay, but there was a little distancing there. Like, some of the characters you were invested in, some not. But I thought this was very well done. Not that every single person there, you're like, oh my God. But just, you obviously care about John. You very quickly cared about this woman and her stakes. I'm like, oh yeah, cool new, maybe a potential love interest.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when the S hit the fan.
Yeah. Oh my God. And those the zombie children.
Yeah,
was
that was great.
Not, it was just this weird quiet moment in the middle of this giant battle, and then it was over for her.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, she paused because, understandably, like, that was like kind of her Achilles heel,
Yeah.
So do you think in a week or two, when right now we're in the high of the episode, will you think this is my favorite episode of Game of Thrones right now?
It's definitely the best of the season by far, because
Yeah.
the season was like dragging a bit, but now it's in high gear.
Yeah.
And definitely a candidate for one of the best of the entire show, definitely.
Yeah, I'd agree, and yeah, like you said, I mean, I don't think the season has been bad, but by their own standards, it's been dragging a bit and slower. But this episode knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
So that was our initial thoughts on this episode, Hardhome. So we are now going to continue, and so if this video is ending right now, look for the entire episode of Dragons on the Wall. Let's dive a little deeper now into some of this stuff. Let's talk about Valyrian steel, because it's been kind of a background element, no pun intended, of the show.
Yeah.
Prior to now, we knew this sword's Valyrian steel, but a key moment here obviously is Jon being able to kill that White Walker with it.
Yeah.
So what do you think this means?
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
Turned him into ice cubes.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
And it resisted the guy's weapon as well.
That's right. It was because that guy was slicing weapons left and right.
Yeah. So let's see. The first big Valyrian steel weapon we had was ice, which was the execution sword.
Ned Stark's.
Belonged to Ned Stark.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was melted down after his passing and made into two swords. One was given to Joffrey. The Widow's Wail, I think it was called, and then the other one went to Brienne, Oathkeeper.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Jon was given one by Mormont, and we know that these are like special blades that are like better than normal steel, rare metal. Just lightly from the books, we know that they're like they've been hinted to be also called dragon steel, which sounds like Dragonglass, which is the obsidian that we know can kill White Walkers.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, putting all this together, these special swords can kill White Walkers.
Right. And so now, of course, the fact you just mentioned, like who else has them, becomes key. Brienne being the only person we know who is holding one right now is Brienne.
Yeah.
Who is, obviously a good and honorable person anyway.
And she broke through a sword with hers, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, on the horseback fight.
So now you're like, get Brienne freaking to the wall. She's already awesome.
Yeah. And the other one, I guess, is in King's Landing with Joffrey.
Well, I don't think.
Or do you think they buried him with it, or it's like sitting in a room somewhere?
I was glancing at some online debates about this last night, and I agreed with the people who were saying that no, it is so rare that it seems doubtful they would bury him with it. But was it given to Tommen, or is it just sitting in some special display room somewhere? But either way, again, becomes like a key thing that they're going to need,
Yeah, a lot more of these. And they lost the small bag of dragonglass they had.
Right.
So it's like, ugh.
Yeah, and I mean, I think...
Why didn't they go there armed with dragonglass weapons? Why are they just, here is it unrefined in a pouch?
Bandolier filled with much dragonglass.
Pass out actual weapons that you made.
Right. I guess that's hard to, not everywhere either. But I do think, moving forward, it's not supposed to be that those are the only swords made out of it, but I don't think they're also going to want to introduce like hundreds of them at once. They have to kind of pick and choose because they want to make these things important. And so it is kind of exciting now to think about what that means, who has them, and you can just see almost these moments coming now of someone has to get to Brienne, who's completely off on her own journey.
Yeah.
But has the characters in what we think are the final years. There's still going to at least be a couple more. Game of Thrones start to bring them together, and the swords, the combination of the Dragonglass and the Valyrian steel swords.
Yes.
It's going to be some pretty cool stuff. I think.
Yes, the Valyrian Steel Force 5.
Yeah. I want an axe on a Valyrian
Yeah.
Let's also talk about the Night's King, who we can now officially call the Night's King. So that's the leader of the White Walkers, the guy who has the stare down.
The Darth Maul.
Darth Maul looking dude. And just a little background, because that term has never been used on the show. It's a term that was in the books. Last year, HBO kind of screwed up and they put out a plot description that had that name and then they removed it.
Yeah.
But last night's episode, not only as it officially described on one of the HBO sites, but one of the creators of the show, when they do those like behind the scenes videos, also I believe use the term. So he's called the Night's King.
Yes.
We don't need to delve more into like the book stuff there. But I just want to wonder now, do you think that this is the final boss of Game of Thrones? Because we've got a lot of bad, nasty villains. We still have plenty in play, like Ramsay, but do you think this is the guy that the end of the show will be about taking down?
Yes, I could see in some glorious battle, it's like Jon and Dany teaming up together while riding dragons, fighting him. And his ice army.
He is, what I'm basically thinking is he is your emperor, your Voldemort, your very powerful villain that you keep in the background.
But the thing is,
start to bring forward.
White Walkers have never said a single word in the entire show.
No.
We don't know. He could be not so bad. Maybe this is good for the realm.
You mean from his point of view?
Yeah. From my point of view, the Westeros is evil.
There you go. That's going to be their big moment. Yeah. Because it does seem, right? I mean, again, this is Game of Thrones, so nothing, we should know not to think that the exact predictable thing will happen. But some version of all these people who have their own issues and all their own battles needing to come together to fight this guy and his legions seems to be where we're going.
Yeah, although I cannot see that happening. I can't see like Littlefinger and Cersei and the Boltons and the reigning Starks and the Lannisters, all coming together.
Right.
So I don't see that happening at all. I see it being a lot more twisted than that in the end.
I think it'll be a version of that, but a twisted version, right? Like we will see some unlikely allies. Some people put aside their differences, but there's going to be maybe multiple wild cards. People who just refuse to participate or show up and cause chaos. Like if there was a big final battle between the White Walkers and our group of people coming together, that some third group causing something else entirely could be in play.
Yeah. It's just weird that, Dany doesn't know about them yet. Right? So she's probably going to come into King's Landing with her dragons and be like, haha, I win. Yeah. And then they're going to show up because they're probably coming down from the north.
Right. I think that is kind of the exciting thing too, right? Because, they add this entire other element. Because, the story could just be, now that Tyrion's with Dany, convincing her, okay, now we're going to go into Westeros and you will come in and conquer. But even Tyrion doesn't realize the scale of what's going on either there. So it's like, even if she does come in with all her soldiers and whatnot, she wouldn't be ready for that.
Yeah, no way.
But then, of course, we do wonder about the dragons and how that will factor in.
Yeah, you think they would give her, obviously, a huge edge against an ice army.
An ice army, yes, yeah.
But obviously, they're still around, even though I'm assuming they would have clashed with dragons in the past.
Right.
So they probably have an answer for dragons. Or what if they manage to kill one and then raise it up and you have this ice dragon like from World of Warcraft, like Arthas has.
I do like what you're mentioning about the Night's King. None of them have spoken. If Night's King will we suddenly have this huge monologue and actually, and he just goes into this long speech. Or maybe, this is Game of Thrones again. Maybe he just kills all of our heroes and it ends with him sitting on that Iron Throne.
Yeah. I don't know. And it's just crazy to think that of what he did with like raising the dead. But it's like, what else can he do?
Right.
Very interested to see.
Yeah, like we don't know the exact limits of their power. I mean, when he was doing that, when he was, raising them all up, I mean, I did wonder, are they going to freaking just jump in the water now? And swim?
Like World War Z, pile on top of each other to make it over to the boat. No one was even rowing in that boat. Do you think they were in just shock? I'd been like, guys, can we get a little
I guess they were all stunned. I was like, get away from the army of the dead.
Yeah.
But we really don't know exactly what he can do. I feel like it will be a thing. And we also don't know the level. We get the idea he's the leader, but what can the other White Walkers do? Is he more powerful or is he just the leader? We were even talking earlier about the fact when they transformed the baby last year, he did it. What did that, was he turning that baby into a white, so basically a zombie baby, or a White Walker? Was this him making a new White Walker?
Oh, I think I would put my money on it being a White Walker.
Yeah.
Like someone who's have sentience and not just a kind of a mindless zombie. But also, are we going to have like another, Jon Snow killing younglings?
Right.
Starting to mirror Star Wars a little too uncomfortably.
I think we might. But I also think, by the way...
I just find all this is like nursery of White Walker babies. And it's what I got to do.
Got to do it. What my dad would have done. I do think he was also making that baby into White Walker. Also because why bother like taking the baby? I mean, they wouldn't go through this ritual just to make a zombie baby, you know?
And we saw 4 on the cliff, so it means there's obviously more.
That's it. Yeah. I have a feeling because we got the one was killed, obviously, but yeah, there's more out there. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see them again this season. There's only 2 episodes left, but I feel like next year is the Night King's year. You know? I think we're gonna, and maybe we will. Maybe he will talk.
And I also want to add on that it was great to actually see this battle and see the White Walkers and the Whites in action. Whereas the last time we saw them, remember it all happened off screen. Yeah, so
that was really cool. All right, I did want to touch briefly again about Dany and Tyrion, because I know we were not hugely split, but I was like love their scenes together, and it's interesting because Tyrion even joked about the fact that like, well, first I was traveling with Varys, and then Jorah kind of took over. Now that he's with Dany, do you think that they're going to kind of stick for a while with the two of them? Was this going to be a partnership the show is going to really invest in? And do you think it could be, we've talked in the past about what great sort of duos Game of Thrones are. Do you think this could be like one of the strong, best duos this show has offered us?
I would certainly hope so. It has the potential to be, right? Because she has all the power and he's got all the smarts and they're suddenly together in the same room. And so I think that they could definitely have, I want to, again, like I said before, there was lacking sort of attention. I want to see them put up against a problem and see how they solve it together.
Right.
Like how do they get the plan in motion to do what they want to do?
What I liked, what he pointed out to her, was that she had none of her like counsel, none of her like close confidence could give her info on Westeros. Jorah could have, but she kicked him out, and she kicked him out again. Although Tyrion saved his life, in doing that. But yeah, Tyrion makes a great point about you want to come in and take over a land you've never been in except when you were a baby, that you have actually absolutely no understanding of how it works. And we know that Tyrion understands how things work better than anyone, you know? And so that's why I think that it would be very exciting, and I hope it will continue with him giving her, being, as he said, he could, we even talked about, I don't know if we talked about this on camera, but we've talked about, and I'm sure everyone has had their theories, like, what if the show ends with her sitting on the Iron Throne and he is the hand, kind of like he offered, again?
I think that's too much of a happy ending.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, it definitely is. It's a wake-up call for her because I feel like she's just been surrounded by not all yes men and stuff like Barristan and Mormont, and there's a lot of people who have been advising her wisely and stuff. But yeah, she's going into a foreign nation pretty much because she's pretty much a foreigner. She grew up outside, doesn't know anything, and it's coming back and say, hey, I'm going to destroy everything you know. Now worship me. Now bend the knee. Although maybe she's going to set up like a democracy or something like that because she just want to break the wheel, not stop the wheel.
Yeah, that was very interesting because we do wonder, like, will this show end with the entire sort of hierarchy of Westeros and the whole way things have been done changing? She says she wants to do that, although, kind of going to Jim Vejvoda's theory that maybe she'll turn evil or corrupt, she could say that now, and then she could kind of basically, put things back exactly as they were.
Yeah, characters change in this show, really, like a lot. So you have to wonder, does she have that Targaryen madness? When she had, she proved a point to the leaders of the city by having the dragons rip one of them in half.
Yeah.
That's not a normal thing to do. Like if you're like a benevolent ruler, right? That's how she's making her point. What if she needs to make a point in Westeros? Maybe she will like sort of fall to the dark side.
I want to see Tyrion and Dany riding a dragon together. That's what I'm hoping for. That's the season 6 poster putting out there. Let's briefly mention before we go into, we're going to go into book spoilers in a couple minutes. Before we do that, we can mention kind of in passing Cersei, who we've never seen so low, literally. But, really right now she has no power and no moves to make. What did you think about seeing her in that position?
A little floor slurpee survive.
Slurping the floor water. Yeah,
it's too bad. Yeah, she's just sort of like, she's not broken yet, right? She's in a very bad spot. I think she realizes that. And she created a monster, and now she has to go through the trial. She has to be rid of her finery, as they say. But yeah, and I love the woman who beats her with a spoon.
Right, and everything she tried like the I will reward you, or you better help me or I'll kill you. But nothing she said would make that woman
Yeah,
break.
she's literally powerless in this
Yeah.
dungeon.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Just that character is always pulling strings herself, but what is her next move? Like how can she get out of here? And let's talk about the Stark sisters, who both were in the episode somewhat briefly, but both certainly things moving. With Arya kind of getting her first contract,
Yes.
as it were. Lana, that was the name, right?
Lana.
Has Lana. What did you think of her storyline there?
I thought it was pretty good. Although I thought it was weird that Jaqen,
Yeah.
he was the other girl was like, hey, if if what if she dies, or that was the implication there. He goes like, the many-faced god does not care, and you're like, wait, what? Are you like sending her on like a death mission just to test her? I was like, that's a little more sinister than I thought. But it's good to have Arya actually again having to actually do something.
Yeah.
She's been so isolated and without any like sort of tension to her story, and so I'm glad that things are like happening and she's actually got something to do.
Right. And obviously the more, not that she hasn't killed already, but the more she's learning the art of subterfuge and assassination, and of course she still has her list, and so you're like, all right, when will these two things intersect?
Yes. Yeah.
And then Sansa, I believe, was only in one scene, but pretty damn notable considering again how separated these characters are. For her to learn that Bran and Rickon are alive, you know, because as far as she knew, all of her siblings were probably dead except Jon. She had no reason. Arya, no one knows what the hell happened to. Bran is dead. I'm sorry, Rob is dead, and then Bran and Rickon she thought was dead. So, what do you think she'll do with that information? I mean, obviously, it's just a lot. She has to get out of her horrible situation first. But what do you think about her?
That was sort of like a weird thing for me because, well, on one hand, it made Theon sort of trudged up old feelings and stuff, and it's another step toward Reek becoming Theon again.
Right.
But as far as for her, what is she gonna do? Like, we haven't really seen her do much with anything, right? When she's given like any sort of opportunity. So I don't know what she's going to do with that information. It was more like she's just caught up to where the rest of us are. Right. It wasn't that like exciting to me, like, oh my gosh, because obviously they haven't done a lot for that character because she doesn't have a lot of agency in the show to go out and make things happen and to go do a search party to find where they are and, where would you even go? Which direction? Like nobody knows.
I feel like that was a moment that will be, I hope and I think will be important like a year from now, Because I mean, I do, again, Sansa is in this horrible situation and really we want to see her, kind of take ownership, be able to on her own fight back, get out of it, which she has not been able to do. And there's 2 episodes left. We'll see where the season goes. So that has to happen first, right? And there's obviously still all this conversation about like the horrible situation she's in and what that perception of that as a character. So I do want to see her, be able to battle back. But I do think her learning that about her brothers will eventually be important. Again, on a show that we joked about sometimes, the Previously Ons will show you things from a year or 4 years ago. I could see a previous on Game of Thrones, well into season 6, being like, oh yeah, her finding out Bran and Rickon are alive.
Guys, I know something.
I know. So, hey, that would be important. So we will find out. We're going to go into book spoilers now. So this is your chance to opt out if you've not read the books. Rest of the entire show will be about the book spoiler section. So if you've read all 5 books, stay with us. Otherwise, we're about to spoil things for you. Okay? You've read all 5 books. That's why you're here. All right.
Or you just want to know.
Right. So the episode Hardhome, all 5 books. Let's talk about this. First thing I wanted to ask is, what do you think about, we're wondering, because they're rapidly burning through the 4th and 5th book. And obviously the 5th book ends with the supposed death of Jon. Do you think Ollie, the kid, I think that's the way you say his name, do you think he is being positioned to be the one to do that in the show?
I don't think he'll be the one person. You're saying he's just going to go and stab Jon to stop his wildling madness.
Right.
Because he's filled with wildling grief.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a bunch of guys like in the book are going to come and like Caesar him,
Right.
But Ollie will be among them.
I think it could be a mixture of both in that, it might still be sort of the group, but I feel like Ollie's the one who will, they'll show the death blow, the close-up, even though, again, I don't think Jon's dead in the books.
Jon will be like, everyone will have stabbed him, and Jon will be like, help Ollie, and he'll be like, and put him out of his misery,
This is for my family. Yeah. I will say that the books, in a series known for its unambiguous, no-holds-barred death left and right, Jon's death was ambiguous enough that I think that he's going to survive it.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. And of course, there's the theory that like that book was also a lot about skin changers and stuff.
Right.
Could he possibly hop into Ghost or something?
Right.
But then is he a wolf for the rest of the
And it might be something
series?
like that. I shouldn't say that he'll be fine, like, oh, I'm okay. But one way or another, I think Jon will survive. You know, will continue on.
I think so as well, but not in a good way.
No. But I do think Ollie, who's not from the books, has been positioned to be the important... so it won't just be a bunch of guys in black who might have yelled things against Jon in the past. He will be the face of those who turn on him for bringing in the wildlings.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about just in general terms is, and of course we've touched upon this last week. You and Jim mentioned it briefly, and we talked earlier, but we're now going way into stuff that wasn't in the books. Obviously even that the Battle of in the books, Hardhome is mentioned. I think it's Melisandre as a vision of it overrun with like death. Mm-hmm. So we just get the idea that something terrible happened to wildlings there. Seeing it, that was totally new and exciting. But obviously the big thing is Dany and Tyrion meeting, which hasn't happened in the books. And I find it absolutely thrilling. And as someone who's criticized the 4th and 5th books a lot and just don't think, they're still good, but they're pretty meandering at times and they're not as strong as the first 3. I just thought it was really exciting, and not just because it stops those a-holes from being able to spoil things just to spoil them. Thrilling to just be like, oh, we are going way beyond the books now and just getting to stuff that we've wanted to see in the books for a long time.
Yes. I'm right there with you, man.
So anyway,
yeah. No, it is great. As someone who's read the books, the whole time, this whole show, I feel like we've been playing catch up. Yeah. But now I feel like everyone's sort of, like I said earlier, on even keel, which is really exciting. And the fact that they're giving us stuff that's we've been building to for so long and the questions we've had lingering, it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy when I thought about last night's episode because we had a lot of storylines, but only Cersei and Arya's are from the book. Yes, Sansa was another character, but it's so different because it is Sansa and she's right there in it talking to Theon. It's just, because the 4th and 5th book do feel like, he kind of lost the story a bit. It's just too many new characters, too many, things kind of going off and some fake outs. We were saying, the fact that Tyrion almost reaches Dany, but then she leaves, it was gotten pretty frustrating.
Yeah, the books and also the big war, the War of 5 Kings was over. Yeah. So he was just sort of rebuilding sort of the post, the new Westeros sort of, and developing that, and then going off into other places and developing these other sub-characters and stuff. And even the show, apparently, Dorne has something to do with something, otherwise they wouldn't have put it in it. But the show is sort of what do they call it when you take sand and go like this and you get gems and gold
sifting?
Something like that, panning for gold or whatever. Yeah. That's what the show is to me. Is it's taking the books, they know what's important, and so everything that's crucial is they're putting in the show. So I think that's interesting to know. Whereas when we read the books, you suddenly realize, okay, maybe all that wasn't that important. It's always cool to see because part of what makes the book so great
building the world
is the world building. Even if you don't need to know about the time this guy went to the bathroom behind this rock, and the significance of the rock and the field it was in. It's so cool to know.
Yeah, and in defense of this season, and I don't want to say there was no misstep season. I mean, Dorne has not been handled well. Like you said, it must be important for them to include it, we assume. We shouldn't say that for sure, because it also might have just been wanting to give Jaime and Bronn something to do, because they don't have a lot to do in the books at this point. And, again, Sansa's storyline, I don't want to say anything yet until we know the payoff for it. It was troublesome, but let's see where it goes. But in the bigger sense of things, and people calling this season of TV, it's slower and it is, it's more meandering, which is valid, but also they were adapting the part of the book. They were doing a truncated, quicker version of stuff. They basically are burning through 2 huge books. And I think it was, wanting to not, just skip everything, then they want to pay tribute to those books, but also being like, it's time to get to some bigger stuff, and start really moving it. And I know the producers have said that I think it sounds as if you read between the lines, I don't even think read between the lines, they want the show to be 7 seasons and HBO wants more, and I think they might compromise on 8. But either way, I mean, with only 10 episodes a season, I mean, we are aiming towards now the ending, so
yes,
things have to go. George R. R. Martin, last thing I'll mention, George R. R. Martin said he really wants to get the 6th book done before season 6 debuts. A, do you think that's possible? And B, how much do you think it'll just be like alternate reality now? When we read that book, and just it'll probably be very, very interesting and different to see where it goes compared to the show.
One, unfortunately, I do not see him getting it out because for those, if you guys are just now getting into Game of Thrones with the show or just now reading the books, you weren't there for the wait for these books and like checking his website like every week to see when he'd post like a chapter and he'd be like, oh, it's coming out next year. Then it's maybe next year, maybe next year. So he's just notorious for being late, and it's fine. Write your story, do your thing. He didn't have this rabid fans, even more rabid fans, I should say, waiting for him to get the book out. So it's a much different scenario right now. But I do not see him getting it out in time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We can make a bet on it. What do you think?
No, I'm no bet because I'm with you.
Okay.
But I do think it'll be interesting to see sort of because again they're going to aim towards the same ending because the producers know the end of the books. But I think it's going to be such a different path now.
Yeah, it'll be, and I think that's great to have. If imagine having two Harry Potters, like we kind of did the movies and the
but
show,
this is going to be even more dramatic.
Yeah, it's just so different because there's so much more going on.
Yeah. So that's all for this week on Dragons on the Wall. There are 2 episodes left. Episode 9 is usually the huge one.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're going to do after
You thought this one was crazy.
We'll see. Our next week's going to be just totally quiet and mellow.
Yeah.
We will see. We'll be back here next time with Dragons on the Wall. Thanks, guys.